So we've got a few minor issues to resolve. What I would like to happen when I click on this View button is that my edit form is closed and I display the activity that I've selected. So this is the easy fix. So I'm just going to go back into VS Code. And when we handle our select activity, what we also want to make sure we do is set the edit mode to false. So I'm just going to set the edit mode and set this to false. And if I go back and take a look, and if I click on View, click on Edit, and then view another activity, then we display this activity. What we also want to make sure is that when I've got an activity that's open for editing, and then I click on Create Activity, what I would like to see is this updated with a reset form with no properties completed in there. And this one's a bit more tricky. And if we take a look at what's going on here, and we take a look at our activity form, and we take a look at our state object, we can see that our state inside here is set to future activity 1. That's what we're seeing inside there. But if I click on Create Activity, nothing changes. But our props in our activity is set to null. And if I click on View an activity, and I click on Edit the activity, and click on the activity form, then I can see in my props I've got an activity set to the object of past activity 1, which is great, that matches. But then if I click on the create activity, I can see my activity in the props has been set to null, which is good, but it doesn't update the components because the component has not unmounted, and simply changing the props has not caused a re-render of this component to give it its updated state. So how do we resolve this particular situation? Well, let's go back to VS Code, and what we can do inside our activity dashboard is we can give our activity form a key. And when we give our activity form a key and the key changes, then this will cause our component to reinitialize, and it will update our state with the new state. So what we can do is say the activity form has a key, and we'll set this equal to the selected activity .id, or we'll set it to 0. And because this could possibly be null, what we need to do in this case is check to see if we actually have a selected activity first. And if we do, it's going to be the selected activity ID, or it's simply going to be 0. And if we go and take a look and see if this has worked, and I'll just click on to view my past activity, I'll click on Edit, and then if I click on Create Activity, now we see that the form resets itself. And we can cancel and view and edit and create and view an activity, and everything's good. But what we also want to do here is change this date so that we actually display the date that's coming from our past activity. Now this date inside here is an ISO string, and this is what we get back from our API. Now this has got a very high level of accuracy compared to what we need, and also our dates input doesn't accept a time at this moment. So let's change our dates input to allow us to input a time inside here as well. And I'll just head back to the activity form, and for our date inputs, I'll just scroll down. What we can use is datetime-local, and this will give us an HTML5 date input that also accepts a time. And if I click on to view and edit, well, we can now see that we're getting a time input field as well as the dates, but we're still not displaying the dates inside here. And the problem is this level of accuracy after the period here. If that wasn't there, then this particular input would accept the rest of what's going on inside our dates input here. It's just this period after the dots that's causing the issue. So what we can do to correct this is we can reformat the dates in some way to remove anything including and after this period, and just use this as our dates inside our activities array. So let's see how we can do this. And I'm just going to go back to our app.tsx where we're actually getting our activities in the use effects. What we can do is before we actually set these activities, let's add some logic inside here. And I'm just going to say let activities equals an empty array. And then before we set the activities, I'm just going to loop through the response.data and update each activity dates to something that our date input will understand. So I'm going to say response.data.forEach, and then for each activity, what we'll do is we'll say that the activity.date is equal activity.dates.split, and then we want to split this by the period, and then we want to access the first, and when we use the split function, this splits a string into substrings and returns them as an array. So we're splitting on this period, and then we just want the first part of the array that's returned from this, which is going to be our date time without that level of accuracy. And then following this, what we can do is say activities.push and push our activity in there. And then when we set our activities, we're just going to set it to our array of activities. And this should be a type of our activity array. Okay, and let's see if this has worked. And if I just go back and take a look at one of my activities, I can now see the dates are in a format which should work with our date input. And if I just click on view and click on edit, now we can see our date is now populated inside our input. And everything should be good at this stage, and we should be able to create and edit our activities using our activity form. And we've got one more thing we want to look at before we complete the CRUD part of this, and that's just to add the ability to delete an activity from this list. And we'll take a look at that next.